this episode of the Stamina Lab podcast, I spoke with Raza Jafri. Raza is a nationally touring comedian based here in Austin, Texas. He's also the founder of East Austin Comedy Club, South Austin Comedy Club, and produces a weekly podcast, Raza Jafri Super Deluxe, which I've been on and is worth checking out. In this episode, we talk about having a lucky mindset, resilience, and failure, and how he gets into flow for his writing and performing on stage. While we aren't all performing on a comedy stage, the lessons are universal. I know you'll enjoy this conversation, so let's get started. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Glenn.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about luck to start off. I wanted to say how do you think you're lucky? Do you kind of have to be lucky to be a comedian? No.
Whoa, what an interesting question.
I think everybody needs a little bit of luck, right? It's kind of like serendipity almost.
Well, I would say luck is a mindset almost, where if you, like, I have a friend who he keeps saying this, where he's like, I was just born to win, and he has that attitude, and so as things come, he I think selectively puts his focus on the things that are positive, and so and then there's people, I think, who also have that in the negative frame, where they think everything's conspiratorial or antagonistic towards them, or the world is antagonistic to them. So I think luck is just like how you define things, because opportunities are appearing all the time,
right? And
some of them you capitalize on. It's also like how you react to those opportunities, or kind of the chaos that's in the world, you know.
So do you have a lucky mindset?
I think so. I think I would argue that a lot of it has to do with upbringing. I think I had I was fortunate enough to have a very loving kind of environment. And so I think I come at things with trust. And so trust is reciprocated towards me. And I think the same is true if you come at things with distrust, then you attract distrust from others.
Right.
And so I think luck, I would say, is somewhat synonymous with that. So.
And then probably that attraction is kind of like from the languaging you're using.
Yeah.
How you say things to other people that
for sure
gets them to
respond in the same way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like any negotiation, I think, where you're trying to set the baseline by saying a price or something. Your baseline conversation kind of
right. Have you read Getting to Yes or Getting Past No? No. It's these books on negotiation that some Harvard guy wrote, and I could totally be making up the Harvard part, but he says that if you come into a negotiation as a zero-sum game of I need to win and they need to lose, then that's the energy that you're putting into the negotiation. But if you okay, let's solve this together as a collaborative thing, where what are the common things we both want, and then we can figure out, if we come in with that angle, then you can figure out the details on where the friction is. It just negotiation becomes much more of a fluid thing rather than a frictional thing.
And do you think you said that your upbringing is up from do you think your parents or your culture?
I don't know. I just
all the things.
I think it's the way my mom just stuffed us with love, and I think that was the feeling I get of security. Right. I think there's a kind of a mental framework of coming from security that I think for me translates into luck, that appears in my life as luck. But luck is hard for me to define also. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I saw something on a post you did a long time ago where you talk about luck surface area. Was it?
Oh, interesting.
How do you create your luck, expand your luck surface area?
Yeah. That's an article I read. Oh, interesting. What was it? There was ways, I think this is a Naval idea where you can, or maybe it's not, I don't know. He's also from Harvard, probably. And
just quote all these people,
making up names and schools.
Yeah.
Luck surface area was there are ways you can increase the possibility of positive opportunities coming towards you, and some of them where I think one of them and I'm forgetting this now. It's like one of those things I read and then talked about and then has slipped from my mind. But like one of them was talking about the things you're working on.
Right.
Because by talking about what you're working on, you will attract other people that are also interested in that or can help you or want to collaborate on those ideas. So that's one way to increase luck surface area.
And then that also then goes back to how your mindset too, like you said about it's like the way you're explaining things to someone is attracting that. Is it from a positive standpoint or a negative?
100%. I think the creating digitally is so. One of the magical things about that is that you throw this frequency, and it could be a very particular frequency that most people do not resonate with, but because the demographic on the internet is so wide, you'll catch the people who do fuck with whatever you're trying to do.
Right.
And so that's another way to increase luck surface area. So like you could talk about it in real life, but you could also like post about it. And hit millions of people who potentially are interested. So.
Right. And so how does that luck translate into your comedy?
Interesting.
I mean, you have a podcast, so that's talking and putting it out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think with comedy, I can define moments that felt lucky to me, but then when I think about it, it's like decisions I've made that have increased the opportunities. So, for example, when I moved to Austin. Since I've moved to Austin, I should say, there's been so many kind of incredible talent that's just been coming in and out of Austin. And so I've encountered lots of people who can, like I got the opportunity to open for Russell Peters, who's like an incredible comedian that I used to listen to growing up. But that happened because I moved here. Mm-hmm. And his opener saw me and then recommended me to him. So like it's like when you do things that give you a lot of like possible positive outcomes, it increases the opportunity for luck. Are you asking for like what kind of like luck as it appears on stage?
Yeah. But I mean, I think everything one thing you just alluded to though is you're putting yourself in that environment. Moving yourself to Austin had a certain environment that you're putting yourself into, where other people
created a lot of magic for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And then. For example, I was always trying to produce shows because the way to get better as a comic is to be on stage as much as possible. And if you produce your own shows, you give yourself the opportunity to be on stage. And then that's how I kind of encountered the club I run now, is because I was trying to always like hit up venues and look for places to run one-off shows. And that venue just it happened to work out where they wanted comedy all the time, and so now it's a comedy club that has given me enormous amounts of luck and leverage on stage. I could give you like a small example, like for example with crowd work, it's all about kind of for a long time I was just asking or this is something I'm like discovering right now, but if you ask questions that are banal or common questions that comedians might ask audience members, you'll get banal responses from, what do you do for a living? That can produce something interesting if they have an interesting job, but if they just do something, if they're an accountant, unless you have something based on accounting, then it's gonna fizzle out into no laughter, right? Or like a hack thing. But if you can learn how to ask a more interesting question, you can get more interesting responses back. So one question I had started asking more often was, what's the most interesting place you've had sex? Mm-hmm. And that produces like weirdness immediately from them. And then that can always, even if I don't have something interesting to say, I can kind of just keep exploring, you at Oktoberfest or in the ocean, and then just like questions. It produces interesting results, and that creates its own luck in terms of positive outcomes for the set, But again, I think there's like some sort of through line here, which is that it's like the decision you make that produces more luck, rather than some kind of unknown, I'm lucky and therefore this is happening towards me. It's like you can make small decisions to increase your luck surface area.
Yeah. So so obviously performing more and more is helping do that. Like
Sure.
How often do you perform?
I would say on average anywhere from 8 to a dozen times a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds difficult.
The thing is, it's like I'm used to it. Honestly, it creates like a callus around me where you're not nervous. Like when I was performing once a week, there would be this steady buildup of tension of, oh, I got to perform and I'm scared of the audience. And now I'm just so overexposed to it that it's like every day I'm like performing. It's just a part of my life.
Right.
So it's honestly that nervousness has kind of been dispersed, but it'll build back up if I don't go up. Like I was on vacation for like 2 weeks and I came back, and then that first time it's like this tension builds up of like, oh, there's an audience and it's scary. Am I funny anymore? And
you lost all your funniness in 2 weeks.
But you feel like that because it's just like
you don't feel as sharp. I mean, you're like, okay, I got you when you were just rolling. You're just rolling,
right?
And you knew you had it.
Yeah. And if you don't perform, you need to perform at least, I would say, and I've heard other comics say this, around like 10 times a week to keep progressing. Otherwise, you're in just kind of like you're maintaining. There's like a maintenance level. If you're performing like 4 or 5 times, it's hard to kind of build new jokes and new kind of avenues to your existing jokes. But if you're performing like a dozen times, then, you know, you have a joke that kind of maybe had its inception on a Sunday and you kind of wrote about it further on a Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you kept practicing it. And, you know, maybe it's a dud and you stop practicing it after a Thursday, but like, or it has some legs and then you keep growing it, and then the next day you're like, watch your video to see how it went and what words you use that kind of worked, and then expand on that and be like, okay, that works, so I'll add that every time I do that now.
So you're ready to put new stuff in your act every week?
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, I would say it varies, and sometimes I'll have like different kind of pressures that I'll angle towards. Like Rogan's Comedy Club opened up, so for a while I was just focused on doing a really tight 3-minute set. Versus like a typical 10-15 minute set, which is what I would do on my shows. So then I was like, okay, because I only have 3 minutes, how do I you know, hit them with what's known as like laughs per minute. Like I get as many laughs.
A metric.
Yeah, for sure. And so then I was like focused on every time I went up, the first 3 minutes is what I really cared about, and on the tail end I would try, you know, varying jokes to kind of keep growing them. But then the first 3, I was just focused on a tight short set versus what a 15-minute act looks like, or what this new joke is gonna turn out to be. So
kind of practicing it, yeah. So do you, when you are performing these, I mean, obviously you're performing 8 or 10 times a year, performing every night, right? Yeah. And is there a process that you use to like get into your performance mode or get into flow? Like what does that look like?
So right before I go on stage, and I think this is something I learned in the last year or two, which is that kind of like what we were talking about with the negotiation relationship you have with the person you're negotiating with. Prior, like when I first started out, I had a very antagonistic relationship with the audience, because you need them to laugh, right? And so when I would go up there, this wasn't like conscious. It was just like I was threatened by them because they kind of
make or break you.
They could break me. They represented the potentiality of me failing. And so I would go up there with that energy. And so I could still make them laugh, but it wasn't a thing we were doing together. It was like a weird kind of boxing match that that's how I started off. And it came from fear. And as I've continued to do it, what I found to be much, and I don't know where I learned this or who I learned it from, but it was just like
somebody from Harvard.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think Harvard, the idea of Harvard taught this to me. Somebody from Harvard. Kyle from Harvard.
Yes.
He told me that I think what I did is change my relationship to the audience to one of gratitude. They came out here to watch live comedy. They're supporting us by coming out here. They're here to have a good time. They want you to succeed because that means they succeed. That means they have a great time. And so I changed my pregame ritual or pre-show ritual to like just assessing the crowd and kind of filling my heart up with gratitude. Appreciation for them, and then going on stage with that, and that it really changes the game. It becomes like the audience just feels more forgiving, even if it's in your own head. You're coming in it with like, okay, we're playing on stage, you know? And that, especially with something like laughter, that's what you want. It's hard to be funny if you're in a defensive posture,
right? So. Yeah, makes sense. And then how did you? The fear you had, you said it still comes back if you. But,
sure.
But how do you manage that, or how have you gotten over it?
Breathing is really important prior.
And that's part of your pre.
Yeah. So it'll just be like slow breaths. I tie it with the assessing the crowd or just watching the crowd and like being full of gratitude, and then I take deep breaths, which is quick inhale and then slow exhale, because Huberman, who probably went to Harvard, Stanford actually. Yeah. Well, then maybe it's not a valuable source. But I think that calms the nervous system down if you have longer exhales than. I'm sure you probably know more than I do. But so I do that. And what was the question?
I was asking you how you got over the fear.
Yeah.
Or how do you manage the fear?
You know, what's interesting is just like, it's going to happen. You're going to do it. You're going to go up on there. There's been so many times where like the fear has almost paralyzed me. And I'm like, you just got to go up there. And then I go up there and then it happens. And now it's been like, I don't know, 1,000 times since I've gone on stage. So like that fear has diminished. But what I have also recognized is that learning to do that with any one discipline, it translates into all disciplines. Like I had this thing where I hate going into like cold water, which has now become suddenly very popular and obnoxious. But that there's this like fear of going in, but like just the way it feels. But I apply that same principle of like, you're just gonna do it.
Right.
That muscle of you have this like kind of wall of fear, and you just need to cross it. Happens in whenever I identify fear in any activity that I'm doing, I just push past it.
Well, you're building resilience every time you go out and do that on stage, and you're like, okay, I can do this.
100%. It translates into all parts of life.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why there's something you should always like be pushing yourself at or competing at or doing something that because it really.
Do you have that one discipline that taught you?
Yes, running. Running does, especially if you do like these stupid long races. Where you're like pushing yourself to the end of your breaking point, and you're like, all I have is my mental game to get me through this, because your body can do it, but it's just your mental.
It reminds me of like Kobe Bryant, who like just in ridiculous scenarios of like, you shouldn't be on the field or on the court right now, but he's still like, he tore his Achilles heel,
right,
and he goes to his doctor, he's like, can I just snap it? But he's like, no, you can't. So but he still like hobbles to the free throw line to shoot 2 free throws, and it's all mental to him, because he's like, I know Paul Pierce tore his Achilles and they had to take him out on a stretcher, right, which was his like biggest rival, and like, so it's just that energy of like mind over matter. Yeah. So I like this. So you get the gratitude. You're doing breathing. So because when performing at anything, we all getting on stage, whether it's an actual stage or going into the office and doing presentations or whatnot. There's that moment of that anxiousness, which is what you need. You need to get it because it gets you moving, gets you there. 100%. And you need that, but then you need that release phase where you're actually releasing something.
you're releasing some nitric oxide, which is expanding your brain a little bit.
What do you mean by the release phase?
Well, so if you're getting into flow or getting performance, there's different phases for that.
Okay.
And the struggle phase is that first part where you're like anxious for it. The audience is coming in your example. You're looking over your notes saying, what we're going to do here. And then there's that. Then you need to you can't stay in that phase, otherwise you'd be all
tensed up.
And I'm sure you've been on stage where you've been all tensed up.
Yeah,
we all have. Yeah, and so you want that break of some sort, and breathing is a great way to do that, especially with the long exhale. Then it allows you to then you probably just breathe and run on stage, right?
I just go up. There's like two other parts that I would mention that are, I think, valuable to kind of build fortitude. One is just I have like a set list of like, okay, these are the jokes I want to try. So I don't go up there like not knowing at all what I'm about to do. Yeah. I have like a game plan. So I know I'll have some structure when I'm on stage. That helps you kind of, okay, I'm going to start with this joke. It could be like a very reliable joke, like I know that works. So like I build trust with the audience with the first laugh, and then I can experiment with new jokes in the middle. Or I'm trying to work on introducing a new first joke, which is like my first kind of building a new first impression. And that's like chop your waters, but you're building something stronger in that case. And then the other piece is recognizing that bombing is a good thing. Even though it's painful, it's like
interesting.
It's like a valuable, because you're gonna get a lot out of it if you bomb.
Right.
It means you're experimenting or trying new things. And so
that's mindset again too.
100%. And so like and I think that comes with time, but like I think recognizing that even failure is actually an incredibly positive experience because you're going into discomfort. Reminding yourself that if the fear gets too big, like, okay, I'm gonna bomb. Who gives a fuck? You know?
Right.
It's kind of the attitude. If it's getting too bad, but
what happens when you bomb? What do you do?
If I bomb, what do I do?
Your friends make fun of you.
Yeah, my friends make fun of me. That's a necessary part. I've had a friend of mine who was hosting. I bomb, and then as I'm leaving, the guy who's coming up to relieve me of my duties is laughing at me as I'm getting off stage. So like, but I got him back because he bombed a week later, and it was great to see him bomb. So it's there's a lot of camaraderie there where like bombing is almost like there's like a ruthless honesty in stand-up that's very it keeps you sharp, and so. And also it's understood amongst comedians. Everyone's going to bomb. If you're not bombing, it's a bad sign because it means you're playing it safe, you know? Because after a while, I have enough material that I could never bomb again if I didn't want to. But then I would not be growing.
Right.
So if I bomb, and there's a lot of like introspection that happens afterwards of like what didn't work.
Go crawl under your covers and cry.
Yeah, you do feel a little miserable, but that's part of it. And then like you could watch your tape afterwards to see what did and did not work.
I love it. It's like you're just like a athlete there watching this tape afterwards.
Oh, 100%. I mean, because so much of like you could swap out one word and a bad joke could become a good joke. It's like, it could be that precise, or it's like the energy you bring, or kind of, there's so many variables. So watching tape kind of really helps you figure out what was it that didn't work,
rather than what your memory thought it was.
Oh yeah, because you'll forget
completely
it
wrong.
So fast. So.
Yeah. So sleep and recovery is a big one of my passions, and comedy is a nighttime activity. How do you manage your recovery? I mean, obviously you're coming off of a performance, and any performance you come off that you have that energy still, and coming out of a flow state. Recovery is so important.
Sure.
So how do you manage that? Because you have to come down a little bit after that.
Yeah, I would say that like I don't have so sleep is very important to me. I don't have a fixed time that I go to sleep, but I have kind of a open-ended time where I need to wake up because so much of my work is in the nighttime. Yeah. So I probably need to get better at like what like right now I've been really enjoying like late night diner hangs. And we talked about this.
It's part of the culture, right?
Yeah. It's, I mean, that's where you shoot the shit with other comics, and it's so much fun. That's like where the real fun is, you know?
Yeah.
Because performing is performing. So but then afterwards you're hanging out, you're talking about what worked, what didn't. You're like talking shop as well. So it's like kind of like immediate feedback from people who can help you. Yeah.
They're in the actual arena with you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I tell you something like, whatever.
Yeah. You give each other like tags, and when a non-comic gives you a joke idea, it's 99% likely it's bad. So, but you humor them. It's like getting an app idea from a Luddite, you know?
Like,
oh, for sure. Yeah. That's what I'll start working on.
I gave you the idea, you know, now I own it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they have so much ownership.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, don't tell me your idea. I don't want
vaporware.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's the same in comedy. So, but like with other comics, they have like, they can see what your ticks are on stage, or like where you're trying to go, and then they'll be like, you know, I've gotten amazing advice of just like mechanics, like they're like, I don't know if I could tell you the whole joke, but there was like this element of like, hey, you're doing this one part and the joke comes much later, based on that thing you're doing in the beginning. And so you should re-emphasize that thing you're doing in the beginning several times before you throw the joke, because the crowd will it'll stick with the crowd, rather than do it once and then much later on do a joke. And so those pieces are just like, while you're on stage, it's hard to kind of pick up on that. But then when they tell you, it gives you much more a different angle that you respect.
Now, that brings me what I wanted to ask about too. Like, I don't want to give away all your secrets,
sure.
but tell me how you make the magic work. No,
for sure.
Like, it's storytelling. There's a lot of storytelling in there, right?
100%. There's storytelling, and then there's like one-liners of just like absurdity or misdirection. That's like also fun. I would say flow state happens in two places. One flow state happens on stage. This is a much harder flow state because there's so many variables, and you're like, you know, of course you want to perform, and there's so many pieces to that. But I have a better kind of, for me, getting into a habitual flow state with how I generate ideas is much easier. So that, because it'll be, I wake up, and then after my morning routine, there's like several things I do to kind of cultivate jokes. One is to go on walks with just like an index card and a pen, so like no phone or anything, and a cup of coffee, and then I say my jokes out loud, because it's basically like performing, but with no pressure of anyone watching. And I'm saying them out loud, and I can kind of get into like goofy states by myself, and new ideas kind of come out as offshoots from original ideas. So like I have the joke already that I still do, right? Let's say it's a joke about dating interracially, and I'll do it, but then I'll think of like another kind of avenue as I'm saying it in a goofy way, or in a different intonation, or a different energy, and then as I think of those things, I write them down on my note card. And then I have then at the end of the walk, I'll throw that note card on like a table that I have specifically for jokes. And then, so now like, let's say the broad topic of interracial has like a few more fragments of like funny things I could add to that particular joke. So that's how jokes will grow for me.
So like adding more details?
Exactly. Yeah. Or like, you know, like a joke is just a world you're building, you know?
Interesting. I love that.
So you have like a premise of like I went to a hip coffee shop, and then, you know, they ask you like what kind of coffee you want, and I said black, but they wanted to know what ethnicity it was, you know, and so something like that. So like, okay, so I did that part, and then later on I realized that the tipping at coffee shops annoyed the shit out of me, because they make me bust the table and stuff.
Right.
And so like then I started talking about that. So this is all just one world of being at a coffee shop, but like building new avenues, and the furniture is uncomfortable at these hip coffee shops, so on and so forth. So these offshoots, it started off with just like one little idea that like, okay, this is a pillar. I can get a laugh on this little idea. But if I keep growing it, I can get multiple laughs, increasing my laughs per minute on this one, and stay on one topic, which is ideal, because each topic, you want to grow each topic, you know, until it becomes a full bit. right? So a joke can just be like one idea, and it's like a setup punchline. But you can have multiple jokes under one broad topic of coffee shops or something like that.
Right.
And so that development happens as you stay in that world, and then kind of explore other avenues. And for me, reciting the original joke will allow things to grow, and then I'll talk about it at the diner or with my other comic friends or my brother, people who I have like a sense of humor, like a rapport. And then the other piece is just like writing long form with like, so I have this idea and I'm going to not recite it out loud, but actually just keep expanding on it. Like, it doesn't have to be funny. I'm less focused on making it funny when I'm just writing about it, because writing feels more pensive to me rather than goofy and funny. It's hard for me to get the funny out as I'm writing in a like a conscious way. And so, but that will give you, for me, that adds a different texture to jokes where, like, you know, dating interracially is hard. Why is it hard? Because you have different perspectives and different value systems, and you see things differently. You argue differently, and if it's your first time with that particular culture, you don't know if there's something wrong with them or if there's something wrong with all of them. But that little part is just the joke at the end. But there's like truth in the middle part of like when you date interracially, there are differences that you have to kind of reconcile. So like, and for me, that makes the joke have more texture rather than it just being, because you know everyone has their own kind of humor, but for me the humor that resonates with me is one that speaks at a truth, you know, like Louis C.K. or Patrice O'Neill or Norm Macdonald. So, and then there's others who are just about the one-liners, who like just like the mechanics of a joke, of setup, misdirection that creates a punchline, and that's okay too. And some people just like that, but yeah.
Right. And then and then you just tell GPT write the joke at the end, right?
Yeah, I have tried GPT. It has not. It can give you premise ideas that like, but it doesn't. I at least from my ability to kind of prompt engineer it, I haven't gotten anything fruitful from it yet in the context of jokes. But I don't know. I think that I'm terrified of GPT.
Yeah.
Why? I think the creative act is so valuable to me. It's kind of kept the nihilism and the despair of existence at bay. And this GPT, this AI stuff, essentially removes all of the effort and work and pouring out your soul that is required to master anything. It just kind of snips it away, and you get the end result, and that is great. I just think that like I don't know. I think it will kind of divorce meaning from the production of creative things in a way that things will. The kind of safe haven I felt in the creative act is going to be divorced economically. It doesn't mean I can still, you know, lay bricks in a way that feels fruitful and meaningful, but there's no like economic layer to laying bricks anymore. And I think most creative acts, most cerebral acts now will also go the way of bricklaying. I don't know anything about bricklaying, so maybe I might be wrong. But, whatever, like making pottery or something like that.
Exactly. But I think that there maybe will be like written by humans or made by humans tagline, like, you know, it's plant-based and
so like what 0.01% of the population who give a shit will get that.
Yeah, exactly. And
somebody put this up. It was like some famous actress, I don't remember her name, but like Harvard, and she said that what they're thinking of, like the movie studios are thinking of doing, are like you sign something, they can take your face and make unlimited movies with your face, doing whatever they want with it. They can also let's say you're a consumer of a movie and you want to see yourself in that movie, they can upload your face, and now that movie will have you as the star. And that's all well and good. I'm trying to be not like put moral positions on any of this, because it's just the trajectory of society.
Yeah, it is what it is.
What's up?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. And but what I think of is like that decimates the entire kind of ecosystem of people who are finding work and living through the world of cinema, you know. Yeah. So where do all those people go? And that's just one industry. I think that's going to happen with every single industry. And so, you know, I hear comedians say like, oh, they can't make jokes, which is just like a stupid myopic view of everything, because it's like, okay, they may not be able to make jokes, but like, who's going to come to your shows if they all don't have jobs?
Right.
You know?
Right. But yeah, there has to be something about the ability to, to craft it that is unique to a human to get that joke. Because you like, it's the comedy, like you said, is coming from a, it's coming from a place that where it resonates for just certain people, you know, in some places.
Yeah, it's so particular.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can it eventually make jokes? I think so. But there's something so unique about the perspective of comedy. Each comedian has its own kind of angle that makes it inherently unique.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of forward looking. I think what GPT does is takes the average of the human, knowledge, the collected knowledge of humanity, and then produces novel outputs, but it takes it from the past. And so comedy feels forward looking and therefore is harder to reproduce, but I don't think it's some unachievable trade. I think that's just comedians being full of themselves.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's impossible to think what the impact is, so you just got to do your thing right now, and
that's all. Yeah, that's all you can do as the world kind of crumbles underneath.
Yes.
Is what it feels like. But I mean, it's interesting for sure. It feels like technology is this force that's moving at a higher and higher velocity, and it's going to, whatever is entrenched, it's going to uproot, and maybe something else will happen. But part of me is can ecosystems survive at this high volatility? Because it seems like everyone's gonna have to quickly adapt,
right?
But this is it's moving at such a speed that okay, let's say you adapt, at what point is it going to change once more,
right? And then so that go back again to just even recovery from your performances, but just in general, that's one of the things that I'm really big on, obviously, just having some type of recovery practice, whether it's not even sleep, just things you're doing to keep the chaos at bay.
Yeah. What I would say is that I think for me, what I'm learning, and this is something new, is I just shot the special at the beginning of this year in January, and putting a goal post out there of I need to shoot this special, and then working up to that created a lot of pressure that improved my craft and made me a much better comic. And then after that, I had time to kind of breathe, and I didn't schedule a new goal. This also created, I didn't schedule a new goal for long enough, where I created a lot of nihilism,
got it.
Because I was okay, I just accomplished that, now what do I do with my life,
right?
And then I kind of went into this meaninglessness phase that right. I think that's just a personal thing I struggle with, but now I have this new kind of objective. So I think I'm trying to right now figure out okay, I know I need goalposts in front of me because that helps me get better and accomplish things, but then I also need to have, just as I need dedicated goalposts to get to, I also need dedicated kind of spaces of rest and relaxation.
Yeah, and I think that's a goal in itself, itself. So that from preventing falling you into that depressive state is like, oh no, I'm in this space. This is the space I am in. I'm supposed to be doing this.
You're
right
allowed
this
to.
This is the goal. And I think that's a lot of times why people don't give themselves the break because they get like, oh, I need to have something else. No, your thing right now is the break. That is a valid space.
Immediately going to something else, you're running on empty
it's just
fumes.
Eventually you're gonna crash.
100%. And that's what I realized.
Yeah.
So, but I'm learning how to kind of manage those pieces right now. And then having different types of goals helps you grow in different directions. So I think with rest and relaxation, another element is other forms of art really get me fill me up in a way that feels restorative. Like I love to cook, and I like recently have started painting again, not in a way where it's my discipline, but as a way just to play. And so just picking other things that help me be creative without like it being my primary thing has been really valuable to me.
Yeah, definitely. So. That's a recharge in itself. Yeah.
Do you have that?
Yeah, I do. I think that having something else you're pursuing that's not your main pursuit thing, because you have ups and downs in your main pursuit thing. So when you're down in that,
there's like money tied to it.
Yes, and so that also always adds another layer of
stress and
pain. That having these other areas that are not money related or hobbies or whatnot, that where you can I can go excel at that or do something and gain confidence from that you then bring back
apply.
Then bring back, just like you were saying, the going from the comedy performances to it transfers over to doing something else hard.
What is that for you?
For me, besides, being an entrepreneur is obviously a lot of the work, but again, anything athletic, running, cycling, all those things, because physically it's doing a lot of brain work for you, giving you really great brain chemicals to feel good, and that's half the battle. So you're like, all right, having your biology work for you is the kind of the idea there. And your art would be a great way to do that. I don't really have I write, but I don't think I have a real art. Putting Legos together, maybe. Yeah.
That's the engineering version of art.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
What's something you perhaps have unlearned in recent years that's helped you improve your quality of life?
What have I unlearned recently?
Or stop doing like a bad habit or something.
I like gravitate towards like volatility. I like so examples of this would be like drug use, but like sustained drug use, not like psychedelics and traveling and things that like explore the unknown. I just gravitate to personally. But I've found that in my 20s, that's all I was kind of doing. It was like a lot of meandering. Is just what I naturally gravitated towards. And that, like, what I have learned is discipline. Picking one thing and sticking to that, and then kind of introducing volatility, because it still informs me. I think volatility and like kind of exploring the unknown allow me to be a good comedian as well, but doing that in a sustainable way, where I'm still making progress towards one thing, because I think meaning comes from picking one thing and mastering it. I also think happiness is tied into that. But my kind of default state is to just be all over the place, try things and then drop them and then try other things. And so learning how to kind of continuously make progress in one direction, but then also have like a release valve where I can keep exploring and trying random things and uncomfortable things, and but doing it in a way that's sustainable and not aimless.
Totally. And how have you done that? What has been some of the ways you've approached that?
I think a lot of it is just like creating concrete like objectives that I want to do with my art. One was just like a kind of a steadfast, like after I came back from when I was living abroad and then not knowing what the hell I'm doing with my life, and then picking stand-up comedy. This was like 5.5 years ago now. And then making that decision that this is going to be it. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life on this. And then everything else, like it was still such a small part. And now it, like, because I've had decided that, it's grown into my whole life. And I still do other things, but like, now I make effort to, like, I don't have like endless days like I used to have, and so now I have to make effort to like kind of plan out endless days, you know. So because there's so much momentum with what I'm doing as my main thing, I need to like make sure that I still enjoy the side quests.
And that's a form of recovery too as well. I mean, having those adventures that you put on a regular calendar basis helps 100%. With that. So you mentioned your comedy special, which I was there for the recording of it. When is it actually coming out?
So it's in the editing room still. I think in the next month or two it'll be coming out. I had to find a different editor with a different angle in terms of getting it to how I envisioned it. But you know, that was such an interesting process too, is like performing it has its own kind of challenges, like immense challenges, but it's not even close to being done after you're done with the performance. There's like so many kind of questions and angles you can take with the final product of how you edit it and what you want. And I think one that was really interesting that did not even occur to me was like when I was talking to this new editor, he was like, well, he didn't want me to include kind of any crowd work that had happened. But I thought that the crowd work kind of really made the show. He proposed it as this, which is that you could have it as like a studio recording. Like in music, you have studio recordings of like just the kind of polished, precise version of that song, or you could have it as like a live recording of when they played at Madison Square Garden or whatever, right? And those are totally different feelings to an album, to a music album. And the same thing goes for like a comedy special. And so then I had to make a decision of like, how do I structure, like, what do I want the final feeling of this thing to be? Is it like an intimate, like you were there feeling, or is it like, hey, these are my jokes? And he was arguing that the way I tell jokes is very precise, and he was leaning towards the studio album version. But to me, that felt sterile. And I wanted the kind of the energy of the audience, because it was so, I think personally comedy is so, I mean, I think this is just a truth, an objective truth, that the comedy is just the relationship that you have with the audience. So it's hard to divorce that and just present the jokes, even if the jokes are good. But so we went that way. But those were decisions. And then if I went that way, I couldn't turn back without paying an exorbitant amount of money to switch it. And so, but those are all the things I was learning about post-production. And so, yeah, I don't know exactly when it's coming out, because we're like at the tail end of editing right now.
But when it eventually does come out, we'll add that link onto the thing.
Of course.
Until this gets actually posted, that might take that long too as well.
Sure,
the post-production. Because that's storytelling too, at the editing phase. You know, you're doing some storytelling there, not just like you did you did the show storytelling, but not how you're going to storytell it.
100%.
The recording.
And also I learned from this new editor, I learned that like he's like, next time we record something, because I would like to work with him next time we shoot it as well, he's like, you're gonna present these jokes. It doesn't matter how the audience is responding. You're gonna tell it like with 110% animation, and you're fully in it, regardless of how the audience is responding. So it's like, so what I learned is that when you shoot for a special, you shoot it for the TV audience, or the ones who are going to consume it later on in mind, rather than the audience in front of you. They're just almost like props, or in order to maximize the kind of the feeling of the final product, which I didn't know. I thought if I kill it in this room right now, then that will get picked up necessarily for the final audience who watches it later on a screen, but it's not. It's two different mediums.
Right. So. One will increase your luck surface area for one.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's the decision you're making to optimize for what avenue.
Right.
Yeah.
So what? Last question. What advice would you have for anybody who's wanting to aspire to do comedy,
do stand up?
Yeah, or even storytelling. I mean,
yeah.
Better storytelling.
What I would say is that, like, just like in the same way that I learned about post-production once I encountered it, the millions of variables that exist that I had no idea existed. If you feel like you have a feeling for doing stand-up, I would just argue, try it. There's open mics everywhere. You just need to get like 3 jokes, write 3 jokes down, and then go up there. And what also helps is just going there without the intention of performing the first time, just to see the drivel that exists, and that'll give you confidence to actually go up there. And then also, like, recognizing that failure is like a necessary part of the whole process, and you'll learn all the variables as you keep doing it. And it's if you see it as a game, it becomes really fun and enjoyable. But if you see it as like, I need to be famous or some accolade, it's gonna be a miserable life, because there's no that stuff is not only rare but also like it doesn't satiate anything.
Right. Yeah, it's an intrinsic motivation. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for joining me. And if someone wants to reach out to you, where do they what's the best way to connect and follow your work?
Yeah, I would say Instagram has been my kind of main medium.
Instagram.
So it's Raza Dots, RAZADOTS. But it's the same thing on all the platforms. So.
All right. Well, thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Glenn. This is great.
Yeah. Welcome to the newest episode of Stamina Lab, hosted by me, Glenn Lubert. If you're ready to upgrade your performance, achieve mental clarity, and improve your well-being, well, then you're in the right place. You'll hear the stories of professionals who have taken on big challenges while managing their energy and longevity through the ups and downs of pursuing their goals. Enjoy this episode, then head to the show notes to learn more so you can take the next steps to build the habits and systems you need to achieve your dreams.